Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We welcome those of you who are here at Temple Shalom in our building, and we welcome those of you who are joining us on YouTube and on Facebook Live as well. And we wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, our first Shabbat of this year. And so we begin, for those of you who have a Siddur at home, we are on page 128 in the middle of the page, Yidid Nefesh, a love poem of this Shabbat. Yidid Nefesh av harachaman, Yidid Nefesh av harachaman, Mishochav Eretzonecha Mishochav La 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 El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayah Ishtachavei Lai Lai La 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 El Muhadarecha Yidid Nefesh av harachaman Yidid Nefesh av harachaman Mishochav El Ritzonecha Mishochav La 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 El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayah Ishtachavei Lai Lai La 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 El Muhadarecha. Page 129, not quite at the bottom of the page, because I will keep Shabbat and guard over Shabbat. God will guard and keep me. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Oti le'ol me'at beino uveini. Oti le'ol me'at beino uveini. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat El yishmereni. Oti le'ol me'at beino uveini. Oti le'ol me'at beino uveini. We turn back just a few pages to page 121 as we light the first Shabbat candles of the new year. Actually, I guess it's the second. We had a Shabbat in between, but the first Shabbat after Yom Kippur. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר shel Shabbat. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy with your commandments and commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. We continue page 130 as we make our way into the Psalms of our Kabbalat Shabbat. Psalm 95, as we begin this journey of leaving behind the week and coming into the peace and the rest of Shabbat. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, nekadma fanav b'todah. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. From Psalm 96, that bottom paragraph on the page 131. Yismechu hashamayim, the heavens will be glad. V'tagel haaretz, and the land will rejoice. Yiram hayam umulo'o, and the sea and all that fills all of them, all of the creatures of God's creation that fill the sky and the earth and the sea, all of us join together as we rejoice in God's creation. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo'o. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo'o. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. As we turn to the bottom of page 132, Or zarua la tzaddik ul yishrei lev simcha, light is sown for the righteous, and happiness for those who are straightforward of heart. We are not even quite 24 hours after the end of Yom Kippur. We hope that we still are walking the path of the tzaddikim, the path of righteousness, and the path of a yishrei lev, of a person who is straightforward of heart, as we have purified our souls during this past Yom Kippur. And so we sing of our rewards of light and happiness. Or zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Yishrei lev simcha. Lai 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 Oh zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Oh zarua la tzaddik From Psalm 96 on page 133, a psalm, sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm has won God victory. Adonai has manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness toward the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. Those words at the bottom of the page in the Hebrew. Lai, 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 lai. Aril Adonai kol haaretz, itzuranimu zameru. Aril Adonai kol haaretz, itzuranimu zameru. Shout joyously unto God, all of the earth. Open your mouth and sing praises to God. Shout joyously unto God, all of the earth. Open your mouth and sing praises to God. Open your mouth and sing praises to God. Come and sing praises to God. The blast of the shofar, the sound of the trumpet. Come and sing praises to God. Aril Adonai kol haaretz, itzuranimu zameru. Aril Adonai kol haaretz, itzuranimu zameru. Lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. We sing from Psalm 99 on page 135. Exalt Adonai our God and bow down at God's holy mountain, for Adonai our God is holy. The last three lines of the Hebrew. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. From Psalm 29, page 136 and 137. We speak of God's power of creation. These last 10 days leading up to Yom Kippur, these Yamim Noraim, these days of awe, we speak of creation, we speak of the joy of creation. And in this particular psalm, the psalmist writes of God's power of creation. We read first in English and then we'll sing the last two lines together in Hebrew. A psalm of David. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders, Adonai over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calf and strips forest bare. while in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. Those words in Hebrew, those last two lines, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 welcome in Shabbat with the Chadodi, as we welcome in the beauty of Shabbat, as we would welcome in the beauty of a bride. The Chadodi on pages 138 and 139 will sing verses 1 and 2, and then on the other page verses 5 and 9. Lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat mikabela Shamor v'zachor v'diborecha Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad Shemo echad Shem tiferet v'lefidah Lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat lefu v'necha ki mikor ha'amlacha erosh mikedem nesucha zot ma'aseh v'machsheva techila lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat mikabela lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat Verse 5. Hikoreli, hikoreli, kivachore, kumi uri, 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 shir daveri, kavod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi likakala yalala yalala yalala, Shabbat mikabela, lecha dodi likakala yalala yalala yalala. We rise as we face the door to welcome Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat mikabela lecha dodi likakala yalala 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 Shabbat mikabela. We can all be seated. As we welcome Shabbat, we sing joyfully of Shabbat. On page 140, Psalm 92, The Psalm of Shabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, it is good to give thanks to God. La'agid baboker chasdecha, to speak of God's righteousness in the morning. Ve'emunatcha b'leilot, and of God's trustworthiness in the evening. We speak of our joy and our gladness of singing of this Shabbat. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Hagita boker chasdecha, ve'emunatcha b'leilot, alei asor ve'aleina ve'lalei higayon ve'chinot. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Yadecha arani, maganu ma'asecha Adonai me'od, amdu machshotecha. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Page 144, Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Ilmad yivrachutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala ba'agala uv'izman kariv yimeru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam olam me'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu le'ila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiron be'alma v'yimeru. Amen. We rise for Baruch Hu, page 146. Our invitation to join together as we pray. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed. We can all be seated. Page 148 and page 149. We give thanks for creation. We read together in the middle of page 149. This is an hour of change. With it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change. And within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'ma'arim Ha'ravim Lai 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 As we turn to page 150, we give thanks for the gift of Torah. We come this weekend to our final chapters. After this Shabbat, we will be looking into the holiday of Sukkot, and then after Sukkot into Simchat Torah, where we make our way from the end of the Torah to the beginning, to begin anew on our journey to find lessons, renewing our journey to find the pathways upon which the Torah guides us. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect upon the words of Torah, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha, Ahavta, Amcha, Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al kin Adonai Eloheinu v'shochenu kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hein chayeinu v'orech yameinu u'bahem nehege yoma v'layla, nehege yoma v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir imenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Ohev amo Israel. We join together in the words of Shema, page 152 and 153. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot be'eninecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'hisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kidoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. Page 156. All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us, that you are our God, you are our sovereign and our Savior who delivers us from oppressors' hands, and saves us from tyrants' fists. Your work wonders without number, your marvels are beyond count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You perform miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. You led our people Israel out from their midst to freedom for all time. When your children witnessed your dominance, they sang praises to your name. Emet be'emunah, emet be'emunah, emet be'emunah, kol zot ve'kayam aleinu, emet be'emunah, kol zot ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato v'anachnu Yisrael amo emet be'emunah, emet be'emunah, emet be'emunah, kol zot ve'kayam aleinu, emet be'emunah, kol zot. When your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude and accepted your sovereignty. Moses and Miriam and all the children of Israel sang these words with great joy to you as we sing them on page 158. Who is like you, O God, among the deities that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in your holiness, awesome in your splendor, working wonders? We, your children, witnessed your sovereignty. We saw you split the sea, and we said, this is our God who led us out, who reigns forever and ever. Shalom. ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אחרוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. We give thanks each night that God will lie us down in peace and cause us to rise again tomorrow to life. That as we sleep through the night, we are protected through the night. Our ancient ancestors thought of this idea as protecting us from those things that might be able to creep and crawl underneath the bottom of the tent. As we usually don't sleep much in tents, except maybe on vacation, I hope. We don't have those things that might crawl in under the tent, but there are other things that throughout the night might afflict us. And in olden days, based upon some thoughts from Talmud, Amram Gaon, who wrote the first Siddur, wrote a prayer that was very similar, not exactly word for word to the words that we see on page 160, but very similar in its wording. Lie us down, O God, in peace. Cause us to rise again tomorrow, O God, to life. And then protect us. And those beginning words were there, and some of the middle words have changed, but it's always been an idea of spreading a shelter of peace over us. Sunday morning we'll be building one type of shelter, our sukkah, outside as we approach a mere few days after the end of Yom Kippur. As we make our way into the holiday of Sukkot, we'll talk about that sukkah in just a little bit, as how we transition from Yom Kippur into Sukkot. They're very, very different holidays, but there's actually a really inspiring connection between them. But we say now, on the third line of the prayer, Ufros aleini sukhat shlomecha, spread over us, God, the shelter of your peace. Ufros aleinu sukhat, sukhat shlomecha, ufros aleinu Page 162. And the children of Israel will keep the Shabbat, to guard and observe the Shabbat for all time. It is a covenant. Beini uvein b'nei Israel, God says, between me and the children of Israel. For in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth. And on the seventh day, Shabbat, God ceased from everything. Vayinafash, and God rested, God's soul. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam, berit olam b'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת שבת ויהי נפש, שבת שבת ויהי נפש, ושמעו שבת שבת ויהי נפש, ושמעו שבת שבת ויהי נפש, ושמעו שבת שבת ויהי נפש. We come to the Amidah as we turn to page 164. We rise as we bring ourselves into God's presence. There's a custom with this zimun, these words from Psalm 51 that we find on page 164. These 6 Hebrew words that we ask God, as the words in English say, as we translate them, open my lips that my mouth may sing praises to you, or may tell of praises to you. A custom of taking 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, 1 step on each one of these words. The idea that we leave our world and walk into God's world. At the very end, 3 steps back and 3 steps forward to leave God's world and enter into our world. Do we physically do so? Not so much. So why do we take these steps? Because often in our prayer, with what we might call prayer choreography, we use our bodies to replicate what we hope that our souls are doing. And so with these words, we take ourselves out of our realm into God's realm so that we can have that conversation with God. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Sifatai Tifta. Anana na 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 Ufi Yagi. Ufi Yagi Tehila Techa. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל 170 אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue 172 through 180 in the Hebrew or the English. If you'd like, 173 through 181 with the poetic renditions on the left of the page, or your own prayers when you finish your own silent prayers. either the words on the page or the words in your heart. Please be seated. Middle of page 180. You luratzon imrefi vehegyon Lifanecha Adonai Tsuri V'goali Adonai Tsuri May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, may they all be acceptable unto you, Adonai, my rock. And my Redeemer, Adonai, my rock, and my Redeemer, you, Ratzon, Imrefi, Imrefi, Lehebion, Lefanecha, Adonai, Suri, V'goali, Adonai, Suri, V'goali. We turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing. So we turn to page 371 for the words of Misha Berach. We ask God to bring refuah shlema, complete healing, to Yishav Zaza, Carrie Schillinger, Betsy Eppel, Robert Oppenheim, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Sylvia Chuk, Reuven ben Sipora, Stephen Sherrow, Chaim Mordechai ben Shmuel Yisaschar, Rosalind Weinberg, Irene Lambert, Moshe ben Avraham, Bruce Schwartz. We ask for healing for all those who suffer from the COVID-19 virus. Here in the United States, the currently reported 9,678,164 active cases. In the land of Israel, the 81,073 reported cases. And worldwide, the 18,735,542 currently reported cases. We ask God to give each and every one of them complete healing, and may it come as quickly as possible. Do we have any other names that anyone here wants to include? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone on this side of the room? Got that one. Thank you. Page 371. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. This Shabbat is the in-between time. It's in between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. On Sunday morning, for those of you who are inclined, please join the men's club first thing in the morning. I think they're coming at 8 or 8:30 if I'm not mistaken. I think there will be coffee. I think there will be donuts. And we'll be building the sukkah right out here on our front lawn so that we might celebrate Erev Sukkot coming up just a few days from now. Sukkot has a few names. Of course, Chag Sukkot, the festival of Sukkot, or the festival of booths, or the festival of shelters, as we might call it. But we also call it Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy. And why are we joyful? The booths, the sukkah that we built, we are taught it's a remembrance of the temporary structures that we lived in as we wandered through the desert. 40 years of wandering through the desert, I'm not so sure how joyful I am with a temporary shelter for 40 years. But yet we call it Zman Simchatenu, the time of our great joy. So what might be the great joy? Perhaps it's the great joy that we're no longer slaves in Egypt. We left Egypt, we left those narrow places, the sea parted, we made our way through the sea. Perhaps the great joy is the joy of not being a slave. But perhaps there's another reason why it's called Zman Simchatenu. Perhaps it's because last night was the end of Yom Kippur. Sukkot comes up just a few days later. Perhaps it's Zman Simchatenu, the time of our great joy, because we're still joyful that our souls have reached a state of purity at the end of Yom Kippur. And we get to move forward with that joy still within us, that we still have not filled our souls with whatever might bring us into that place of impurity. And if that's the case, if Zman Simchatenu is the time of our great joy because we are joyful with pure souls, then Sukkot is the perfect holiday to come merely days later. Because we are reminded of how fragile a pure soul is, how fragile it is to have relationships with others and not harm others. Because the sukkah is a fragile building. It takes extra care to keep that sukkah standing. Traditionally, a sukkah has 3 walls. A 3-walled building is certainly not as sturdy as a 4-walled building. We welcome into that sukkah the ushpizin, the mystical guests that come during Sukkot. But when we welcome guests into our home, we want to make sure that they're safe. Yes, we have the rule of building a parapet on the roof. We have a rule of covering up a hole, a pit that might be in front of our house. But how much do we put the effort into making sure that others are taken care of? It might be in terms of health and sickness. It might just be in terms of welcoming the stranger. Years ago, I learned about what an invitation means in the Middle East as opposed to what it means here in the United States. There's that famous sentence, "We should have coffee sometime." In America, "we should have coffee sometimes" it means I'm done talking to you, I'm going to leave now. But in Israel, it means a little something different. Many, many years ago, several decades ago, I was in Israel, and someone said to me, "You should come over for coffee." I said, "Great." About a week or 2 later, I bumped into that person, and they said, "What happened?" I said, "What do you mean, what happened?" They said, "I invited you for coffee, and you said yes." I went out, I got fresh coffee, I bought a fresh cake, I got flowers to decorate the table, and you never showed up. I think it was because I was still functioning on American terminology. Let's get coffee sometime means I'm done talking to you, I'm going to leave now. But no, they were expecting that I was going to show up. Like the sukkah, relationships can be very fragile. And little things that we do, like not showing up, can strain those relationships. They can topple the very fragile sukkah. When the Ushpizin come to visit, we want to make sure that our sukkah is sturdy. And how do we make the sukkah sturdy? We make it sturdy with our presence. Relationships are fragile. When we show up, we keep those relationships together. When we don't show up, perhaps they fall over. On Yom Kippur, we say it was sealed in the book of life. The idea was sealed that here we are with pure souls and we have sealed our future. The sukkah, it's not quite as sturdy as our homes. It's very fragile. To remind us that that state of purity, that judgment of our year to come is very fragile. We need to be reminded because it's almost every year. Not this year because we didn't have a break the fast in the building because of COVID. But I can tell you that every year that I've worked in a synagogue as a rabbi, as an education director, as a religious school teacher, after Yom Kippur ends and we go to the social hall, to the basement, wherever it may be, that the break the fast is happening, it's not 1 minute into the break the fast until I hear the first gossip in the room. We just blew the shofar minutes ago, and people are gossiping about each other. Lashon hara, their first sin of the year, and they haven't even left the synagogue. That sukkah is our reminder. It's very, very fragile. It's easy to knock over a sukkah if we are not careful. It's easy to make our pure souls from Yom Kippur into impure souls before Sukkot if we're not careful. Why does Sukkot follow only a few days after Yom Kippur? The harvest festival of the fall fits into the calendar, but I think it also exists there to remind us of just how fragile the concept of purity in our souls is. If we focus on that concept each and every day to try to keep our souls in that state of purity, then the sukkah itself does its job to remind us how fragile it is, to remind us how much care we need to take. As we make our way towards Sukkot, may we continue in the ways of Yisrael Salanter, the rabbi that we studied over the course of our High Holy Days, to look inside ourselves and find those midot, those aspects that will help keep our souls pure, so that we may walk into this year with purer souls, and that we can protect the fragile state of not only our souls, but everyone else's. Ken Yehi Ratzon, and I pray that in the year to come, this will be God's will. We turn to page 598 as we come to the closing prayers of our service. Actually, before we go to 598, we're going to go to 586. That's a better place to start. The bottom of the page as we rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי ki Adonai hu Elohim bashamayim mima'al ve'al haaretz mitachat ein od. The middle of 590. Ki amalchut shelcha hi u'amei timloch bechavod kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad Ushemo echad. We can be seated as we turn to page 598 now. We come to our Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. In our yard sites this week, we recall the memories of Bella Zolot, Benjamin Weiner, Jean Cook, Solomon Moiseev, Harold Gordon, Sylvia Perry, David Cohen, Ellis Cram, Lily Goldstein, Sarah Gang, Truman Warren, Anita Rosenzweig Cohen, Donald Johnson, Dorothy Schmemmerman, Elsie Kutinsky, Leonard Savitt, Max Mogilner, Zita Bram, Ruth Footlick, Frida Ossoff, Hyman Wallbaum, Julie Pikus, Sarah Kaufman, A. Nathan Cook, Evelyn Oppenheim, Steve Newland. We also remember those who have died in the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in the United States, the now 690,659 reported deaths. In the land of Israel, 7,494 reported deaths. And worldwide, 4,692,118 reported deaths. We also recall the memories of 3 recent deaths in our congregation and in families of our members. We remember Ira Saltzman, who died just a few days ago, the nephew of Rosalie Laser. We remember Eleanor Greenberg, mother of Julie Richmond. The funeral will be in Denver on Sunday morning. And Millie Perlow, in the 99 and a half years of her life, sister of Jan Unger, aunt of Mike Unger. Yehu zichronam livracha. May their memories all be an eternal blessing. We ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is to stand as we join together in sanctifying God's name with Kaddish Tome. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chaye echon u'vyom echon u'v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal shemei d'kudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Huyaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'yimru amen. We can be seated. A few announcements before we make our way. Judy, you've got some announcements. I'm going to let you come right here because this is the microphone that's in the camera. So we've got right here, we're going to invite Judy Oppenheim from our board of directors to come and share a few announcements of upcoming stuff. There's actually lots of upcoming stuff. It's Sukkot. Judy.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Rabbi Jay for leading this service. There are many ways to support Temple Shalom: dues, contributions, and Kol Nidre pleasure.
You can't hear. You know what? Let's try it. We're going to try it this way. Here's what we're going to see if we can do. Let's see if this microphone will give us some good sound here. Let's see here. Maybe, let me see, this one. If you hold it all the way up like this, I think this one will give some good sound. Okay, there we go.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi Jay, for an inspiring service. There are many ways that you can support Temple Shalom. Dues, contributions, and Kol Nidre pledges are our greatest source of financial support from members. We also partner with businesses: King Soopers, Amazon Smile, Box Tops for Education, and Shutterfly. Your participation supports Temple Shalom. Look for details in your weekly email or speak with a board of directors member. Coming up is the holiday of Sukkot. The Sukkot service, the Erev Sukkot service is Monday, September 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m., followed by the first day service on Tuesday, September 21st at 9:30 a.m. Also coming up is Shmini Atzeret and Yizkor service Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. and Simchat Torah Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m. I believe there are also some other events in the sukkah during the holiday. In October, we're going to have our first session of They Never Taught Me That in Hebrew School with Rabbi Jay. Learn how to use the Amidah as your gateway to your one-on-one discussion with God. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. If we have any of you who are in our next gen group, our 20 and 30 something group, Tuesday night in the sukkah, it's Jews and Brews. It's dinner with me, with a beer and a discussion and a free dinner. So if you're in a 20-something or 30-something, come and join us for Jews and Brews. Caroline Bloom, our next gen coordinator, will be happy to get you instructions on how to sign up for that. Just go to our next gen page on Facebook, and that Facebook page will get you there. On page 645 in our Siddur, third song from the top of the page, some words that come to us from the book of Isaiah. They come to us from the book of Isaiah, these words that say, second line down, excuse me. The second line down is, I'm looking at the wrong side. Pirkei Avot. It is not your duty to complete the work, neither are you free to desist from it. As we begin this new year, we begin the work of fixing all that is wrong in the world, and we don't have to complete all of that work, each one of us individually, but we have to play a role in it. Those words, it goes just like this, right in the middle of the page, 645. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, velo ata ben chorim lehibatel mimena, velo ata ben chorim, velo ata ben chorim lehibatel mimena, velo ata ben chorim. That's the whole thing. You can give it a try. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, velo ata ben chorim lehibatel mimena, velo ata ben chorim, velo ata Shabbat Shalom, everyone. For those of you on YouTube and Facebook Live, we'll wish you Shabbat Shalom and a wonderful evening. For those of you who are here with us at Temple Shalom, we'll join outside in just a moment for a little Kiddush and Motzi. Shabbat Shalom. Lo alacha hamlacha.